Anyways, guys, let's start. I want to thank everybody for coming. Yeah, he's afraid of you. Don't get close to him. But he's harmless.
I'm homeless or harm?
Harmless. Harmless.
I'm homeless.
You harm people?
I don't harm people.
So what do you harm? Ants?
Terrorists.
Well, that's not harm. That's self-defense.
Yes.
It's actually in halacha too. It says if a kohen kills somebody, then he can't give the blessing of the priests. So there were a lot of soldiers, that were kohanim. They killed people. So they said there was self-defense, killing terrorists. That's not called killing. That's called self-defense.
Here's the thing, the difference between killing and murdering.
No, you got to teach me.
The difference is you gotta kill him unintentionally. Murdering is intentional.
It's premeditated, huh? But self-defense is not killing. Okay, that's true. Do not murder. Anyways, guys, so let's do it. Bezrat Hashem, we're going to go a little bit further. By the way, next week, guys, we can't have meat. So by force, we got to order pizza next week. Please forgive me, but we're going to make it up the week after. And by the way, if you guys get too much tired of next door, we have to get a special deal with Tel Aviv. We have to go back to Tel Aviv. But I forgot to call them. I haven't gotten any deals from Tel Aviv yet. But anyway, so let's go learn something. Actually, we're going to go into something a little bit deep this time. As you know, there are sometimes in the Jewish calendar that one day only in that entire month turns the entire month into the theme of that month. For example, we find regarding month of Adar that it says that's when Purim happens. It says month of Adar is a month that it's called, it says HaChodesh, the month that Nehpach leSimcha, it was actually turned into happiness. Why is the whole month happy month? So they say because of the holiday of Purim. In other words, the happy days in our history was only 2 days. The day of Purim and the day after Purim, Shushan Purim. The 2 days that in old Persia they had a war and they defeated their enemies. So there was only 2 days of happiness, but that actually had an effect on the entire month. The entire month became a happy month. And actually that has a ramification in halacha too, in Jewish law. Hopefully all you guys will get married one day. So according to the Jewish law, it's better to make the date the first 15 days of the month. I'm talking about the Jewish month, not the second half of the month. What's the reason? Because Jews are compared to the moon. Our calendar is a lunar calendar too. Our year is missing 11 days than the solar year. That's why you have to have a 13th month every 2-3 years. Anyway, so the Jews are compared to the moon. So the first 15 days that the moon gets bigger, so it's a good sign for the Jewish people. And you want to get married at a very auspicious and happy time, so you do the first 15 days. The second 15 days of the month, the moon gets smaller, so the sign is not good. But there's actually an exception. Month of Adar doesn't make any difference because the entire month is a happy month. So the sign of it is a good sign. All right. So we see that the entire month of Adar is a happy month because of 2 days of Purim. Now we got a problem. We got 2 months that are actually sad and happy. Both things happen. One is the month of Av, which is next month, right? Everybody knows Tisha B'Av, the saddest day in the calendar, that we lost 2 temples. Both temples were destroyed. Actually, 5 bad things happened. But the most famous things that we do know is the 2 temples that are destroyed. And it always has been a sad month. Right? These days, right? During those 9 days, no meat, no getting married, no happy stuff. You can't even, let's say, do construction to make your house look better. You know what I'm saying? You got to actually push it off after the 9 days. But there's also a happy day in the month of Av, the 15th day of Av. It was a very, very happy day. The Gemara gives like 6 or 7 reasons why the 15th day of Av was a happy day. You know how they used to celebrate it? We don't celebrate that way these days. It says girls used to go get white dresses, but they would borrow it from a lower class, so they shouldn't show off their clothing. And then the girls would go to a vineyard and they would dance in a circle. And all the single boys, not married boys, they would go and actually pick a date and they would get married. Wasn't that so simple, huh? Just go to the vineyard, pick a girl, go out, and hopefully get married. These days there's complications. It's not, but that's what they used to celebrate it. That was the happiest day of the year. So is it a sad month or a happy month? That's one of the questions that we have. Also, If you look at this month of Tammuz, so last Tuesday we fasted, and one of the reasons are because that's the day that Moses broke the two tablets, and also the walls of Jerusalem were broken, and that's why 3 weeks later the temple got destroyed on the 9th day of Av. So it was always known to be a sad month. But in the Chabad calendar, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was saved from jail in Russia because he was teaching Torah. So it's like one of the happiest days in the Chabad calendar. So we got this contradiction. From one side, it's a happy time, but at the same time, it's a very, very sad time too. So what is it? What is this month? Sad or happy? I guess Jews are always confused. So we don't know what it is. Happy, sad, we can't make our mind. We can't make up our mind. But let's really discuss it. Is it supposed to be a happy month or a sad month, right? We're going to make it a little bit short. Also, another question that comes up, let's see what kind of answer you guys will have for this. It says when Mashiach will come, what's going to be the happiest day of the Jewish calendar? You tell me. When Mashiach, Messiah will come.
Every day.
No, there's one that's going to be the happiest day. It's Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av is going to be the biggest holiday. The day that the temple got destroyed is the biggest holiday. It's weird, isn't it? We understand why we don't mourn, because we have the temple, the whole world lives in peace, something that nobody has achieved yet. Could you believe that the entire world, from Japan all the way to whatever, was the furthest place? From Japan to Japan, right? The entire globe, right? So from Israel to Israel, all the neighbors of Israel, Russia, Ukrainians, they're all going to live in peace. Right? So the happiest time is going to be Tisha B'Av. So the question is, why is Tisha B'Av the happiest day? You understand why we don't mourn. There's no sad things happening. But why would Tisha B'Av be bigger than Passover? So actually, this will answer all the other questions too. All you guys are going to be parents one day. You're going to be a father one day. Huh? Of course. Make sure you pick the right girl. Don't let the looks fool you. It's not the size of the dress. It's the size of the heart. You know that, right? Don't let it, and also for the girls, it's not size of the ring, it's size of the heart. Don't let his money fool you. All the promises mean nothing. So, anyways, when you become fathers and mothers one day, Bezat Hashem, you see, a parent always wants to give whatever the kid wants. What happens if the kid does not behave? So, unfortunately, at that time, we got to discipline the kid, not punish the kid. Not, God forbid, beating the kid. Sometimes you got to discipline him. And I know therapists always tell you, when you punish your kids, don't just punish him with something that has no connection to his act. Let's say, the kid doesn't do his homework. Okay, you didn't do your homework, I'm not giving you lunch. What's the connection? You say, you didn't do your homework, so you can't watch TV till you do your homework. I'm saying he understands. Because I'm not here to hurt you. I wanted to be successful in school. You could watch the TV, but you got to do your homework first, right? So then the parents have to discipline the child. When do you see the love of the parent more? When he gives to the kid what he wants, or when he disciplines the kid? It's a good question, really. Where do you see deeper love of the parent? I'm talking about a normal parent that doesn't get angry and he's beating the kid, he's punishing the kid for the sake of punishment. He's disciplining the kid to have a brighter future, an ideal parent, which most parents are. So when does he show his real love, deeper love? When he's kind to the kid or when he's disciplining the kid? What do you guys think? Judaism always says the opposite. So what do you think? Disciplining. So you're not saying the opposite. I mean, you're saying the opposite of normal thinking, yeah. But that's what Judaism says. Why? Because by nature, a parent wants to be kind to the kid. That's natural. When the kid is not behaving, so the parent loves the child so much that he goes against his nature. He's in pain. The parent is in pain. But nevertheless, because he loves the kid, he breaks his nature. He goes through the pain to discipline the child. So there's actually a deeper love inside. But on the outside, you don't see the love. You see the judgment, the punishment. But really deep down is out of the love of the parent. And the proof is, if he sees a kid in the street who's not his child, not behaving, he doesn't want to discipline the kid, or at least he won't be motivated as much. Why for his own kid he's motivated so much to discipline him? Because he loves his kid. So please don't get mad at your parents if they discipline you. They really love you. Even if he's going to tell you, don't marry this girl because it doesn't match to our family. They might make a mistake, but they do it out of love. They really don't mean anything bad. You know, my mom didn't want me to marry the wife that I married. Sometimes you go to marry a Persian girl, so I speak the language. I said, Mommy, I want to live with this girl, not you. I speak English. What's the problem? I don't know. But that's a Persian mentality. It has to be somebody that fits the entire family, as if the girl is marrying the entire Persian family. But that's the mentality they have. Anyway, so we see when the parents actually discipline, there's a deeper love. Clear? So now Passover, you know, when God showed his kindness, that's nature of God. He made miracles, took us out of Egypt. When Sukkot came, that God, you know, made those clouds to cover the Jews in the desert, that's nature of God. When the Jews sinned, so God had to destroy the temple to keep the Jews alive. It says instead of punishing the Jews, he destroyed his own house. So on the external, it was really a punishment. We were exiled from our land. But deep down, God did it to discipline us. So what we see, so it was much deeper love, but externally, it seemed to be like a punishment. But it was from a deep love of God. So when Mashiach will come, right? So we're going to celebrate Passover. Yeah, that's nature. That's the nature of God to be good. He made the miracles. But when Mashiach will come, we won't mourn on Tisha B'Av because the temple is going to be rebuilt. The whole world lives in peace. So the punishment is gone. What is left of Tisha B'Av? The deep love without a punishment. Do you get that? So these days we have to mourn because we don't see that deep love. I just see the punishment of God. So we mourn, we have to cry, whatever. We don't have the fun stuff during these 9 days. But once the temple is rebuilt and there's no more punishment, so the only thing which is left is the deeper love of God. That's why it's a bigger holiday than Passover. Clear? It's amazing how, you know, Torah turns around everything. What doesn't make sense makes sense. And once we learn, wow, it really makes a lot of sense. And by the way, this teaches us great things. You know, we're going through a lot of hardships in the entire world. I'm telling you, not just in Israel and the Middle East. You have Russians and Ukrainians. You have in China. I don't know, wherever you go. You have in Iran. You know, anybody that is anti-government, they just punish them, they kill them, you know. Many accidents happen, unfortunately. Right? The guy goes to jail, accident happened, he died. They didn't kill him, just an accident happened. You know, a lot of really evil things are happening. But it actually gives us hope. These are only for now, they're temporary. Whatever plan God has, I don't know what it is. But these are the external punishments. Hopefully it's going to be end to it very soon. And we'll see just the goodness. So that's why Tisha B'Av is the happiest holiday. It will be a happiest holiday, not right now. Right now, please don't go jogging, running around on Tisha B'Av. Now we got to keep halacha, we got to mourn. No weddings, you know what I'm saying? You can't eat meat during the last 8 days because we don't see the goodness yet. When Mashiach will come and see the goodness, then we will be happy. But anyways, this also explains how could it be that in the month of Av, you have Tisha B'Av, which is the saddest day. At the same time, the 15th day of Av is the happiest. Or this month, the 17th day of Tammuz, we fast. But then in the Chabad circle, you know, 12th and 13th day of Tammuz is a very happy day because their previous Rebbe got saved from jail. Because yes, Shiva Sar Tammuz seems to be bad, but externally is bad. After Mashiach will come, that's the deepest love of God. So it's really source of happiness internally, not externally. So they're also for the good, and actually it's a deeper love of God. That's when this month good things happen also. Clear, people? I was going to say something, but I forgot what I was going to say. It had to do with this stuff. Oh, by the way, yeah, there are actually 2 explanations that I wanted to give. One was given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the other one with Rabbi Chanan Wasserman. He was the student of the Chafetz Chaim. You know, during World War II, like there were a lot of innocent people getting killed. I guess 18 million people, 6 million Jews, right? 18 million people got killed. So all those people had a question, why did God do this? The answer is really, we don't know. Anybody gives you justification, I guess he's intending to be God. Only God knows why he did it. But the answer is we don't know, but at least they give a certain example to make us understand why we don't know. One of them was given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. You know, somebody asked him, why did the Holocaust happen? So he says, you know what, imagine a 2-year-old kid, 3-year-old kid goes inside a surgery room. What does the kid think? The guy is tied to his bed. People are standing with their masks, right? Looks like Hamas people, you know. And then they have knives in their hands and they're like poking this guy and blood is coming out all over. What does the kid think? these guys are murderers, right? But once he grows up and he goes to college, to university himself, he might even become a doctor himself. And he will do the same thing that he saw these doctors doing. Then he says, these guys are not butchers. These guys are angels. They're saving lives. So now again, remember, the difference between a doctor and a 3-year-old is not an infinite difference. This kid one day might become a doctor, maybe even a bigger doctor than these doctors that they were there. But at the age of 2, he thinks they're murderers. When he gets older, he realizes that they're really angels. So us, compared to God, we're even less than the 2-year-old. So we don't know why God did it, but at least understand that I'm nobody to understand why God does these things. There must be something good eventually that we're going to find out. What the good is, I have no idea. And I really hope that God doesn't do these goods anymore. We need good things that are good in our eyes too. So that's one explanation the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave. The second one was given by the student of the Chafetz Chaim. There was a lieutenant, his name was Lieutenant Birnbaum. He was an Orthodox Jew. And he went to Europe actually after the end of the war. He fought in the World War II. And then when he saved one of the guys from the concentration camp, he was somebody that saw Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman. He was the student of the Chafetz Chaim. And he says, did you hear what he said about the Holocaust? So he says, no, I never did. So he says, let me tell you. I asked him, Rabbi Elchanan, why is God doing this? So he says, let me tell you a parable. There was a guy that wanted to know how you make bread. So he goes to a baker and he says, could you teach me how you make bread? He says, yeah, you're going to have many questions, but I'll show it to you. So first he takes him to a field that's beautiful, nice grass growing. I don't mean grass that you smoke. I'm talking about different grass, the grass that cows eat. The first time I went to Taft, I had no idea. I had a lot of experiences in Taft, I told you, the first time I walked in there, how are you doing, fool, I didn't know fools go to Taft. How are you doing, dog? I know dogs go to Taft. I thought human beings go. But anyways, there was one time a kid there, he was making something like a cigarette and smoking. He says, Rabbi, it's not what you think it is. It's not drugs. It's a cigarette. I had no idea they could make drugs. I learned a lot of stuff. So what, these kids know at 12, I learned at 40. I was ignorant compared to them. But now, thank God, I learned a lot of stuff, a lot of good things. So, it takes them to a place that's a lot of beautiful grass growing. So it brings this tractor and they actually start plowing the field. So it says, what are you doing? You're just making it all full of dust. So it says, I'm not finished yet. So after they do the plowing, they bring these beautiful kernels of wheat and they throw it all over. So it says, what are you doing? It says, I'm not finished yet. Then they put water, they make it muddy. What are you doing here? I'm not finished yet. Anyways, the guy doesn't know what this crazy person is doing. And then after a while, you see the wheat grows. It's beautiful, right? You have these wheats growing. Then afterwards, the guy comes and harvests it. And then he puts the kernels into bags. What are you guys doing? This place was beautiful. I'm not finished yet. And then they go grind the kernels. They make it into powder. What are you doing here? He says, I'm not finished yet. And then they take this powder and mix it with water. They make it look like mud. What are you doing? He says, I'm not finished yet. Finally, they put it in the oven and bread comes out. So it says that's how you make bread. There's a lot of stages that, an ignorant person doesn't understand why you have to go through all this. But once you go through it, you understand this is part of it, to bake the bread. So Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman told him, when Mashiach will come, we'll understand exactly why God did these things. Right now, we're in the process of making bread. We have no idea why these things are happening. There's actually a third parable, I just remembered it, that a Chafetz Chaim says. You guys all know the story of Yosef, right? And his brothers? Right, when they come to Egypt to buy food, what does Yosef do to them? You're a bunch of spies. You came here to figure out where the weak points of Egypt are, correct? And then what happens when he sells them the wheat? He puts the money back in their bags. So when the guys go home, oh my gosh, who put the money back? They're going to accuse us that we are thieves, right? And then he says, you know what? I'm not going to sell you anything unless you bring Benjamin, your younger brother, to Egypt. You're a bunch of liars. I don't believe you that you're son of, Jacob with 12 brothers, unless you're going to bring your young brother, younger brother. When he sells them the wheat the second time, what happens? They find the cup in the bag of Benjamin, right? We all have learned it. As kids, we watch, Hanna-Barbera, there's videos that they make for kids, cartoons. So at least in the cartoons, we have watched it. And then they actually accused Benjamin that he was a thief. So the brothers were going crazy. Everybody comes to Egypt. They buy food. Nothing happens. Nobody's accused. Only us, we are accused. And then when Yosef says, I'm Yosef, your brother, wasn't all the questions answered? They knew he knows who Benjamin is, and they figured out there was a whole reason why he made this whole trick to bring them down to Egypt. So the Chafetz Chaim says we have many questions today. When Mashiach will come, God is going to say two words. Three words in English. I am God. Just like Yosef said, I am Joseph, In Hebrew, it's two words, Ani Hashem. In English, it's three. I am God. So then every question is going to be answered. So please, guys, do not give up hope. Don't think it's the end of the world. It's the end of the world for the good. And by doing good things, hopefully Mashiach will come very, very quickly. If you have any questions, please let me know. Let me just actually call this door. I hope it'll be open. You have any questions, guys? No questions? We're going to actually learn something else. We should never feel that we are the victims of our past. We're never victims of our past. And I'll tell you in a second. Well, I'm saying that actually it's connected to the Torah. One minute. I forgot to call Melrose Burger. I'm really sorry. By the way, guys, if you get tired of Melrose Burger, let me know after Tisha B'Av. We go back to the other store, Tel Aviv.
Hey, Rabbi Malone, how are you?
Baruch Hashem. I'll be there at 10 to 9. Is that okay?
10 to 9?
Yeah, thank you. Well, right now we have at least 25 kids, but they might get more.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thanks. Anyways, guys, one of the things that I wanted to discuss, we should never be victims of the past. If anybody tells you you're good for nothing, he doesn't know what he's talking about. You're good for many things. All of us, every human being. And again, actually, in our history, we have seen that. Guys, one of the unfortunate things, there are some people that they say you owe us a lot, like the black community. I'm nothing against blacks, by the way. I'm serious. So they always think, that some of them, that the world owes them because they use them as slaves. You owe us, you have to give us your field. Again, this is something that, forgive me, the Democrats use to divide the nation. Didn't Jews go through the same troubles that they went through? Of course, in Egypt, we were also slaves. World War II, the Crusaders. You ever see Jews going around telling you Iraqis owe us our houses because you kicked us out of Iraq in 1948? Do you ever go to the United Nations, say the Syrians kicked us out from Syria, so you owe us houses? They never did. They rebuilt. Again, I'm not here to come and say, Jews are better or worse. I'm not even talking about that. But there's something that we have learned. You're not the victim of the past. Look at the future. Don't make yourself the victim of bad things that happen. You could get out of it. And really, 75, 80 years after World War II, look what they have built with God's help, no question. With our soldiers help, God's help, and then the soldiers and the people that are there. You're not victim of the past. You could get out of it, no matter whatever happened before. So I'm going to actually discuss this, that also God many times looks at our future. Doesn't look at us the way we are sinful, if somebody is sinful at a time. And actually, because of the future, God redeems us. Even though in the situation right now, we are not the best. Where do we learn that from? We learned from last week's parsha. Last week's parsha talks about the sacrifices they bring in the temple. Suddenly, the Torah talks about sacrifices that they brought during the holidays. On Rosh Chodesh, the first day of the month, Passover, Shavuot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and Shmini Atzeret. These are all the holidays that we have. Right before the Torah talks about sacrifices of the holidays, it talks about the sacrifices of Shabbat. They used to bring 2 extra sheep. Every day they brought 2 sheep, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. Shabbat, they brought 2 extra ones. On the holidays, they brought a lot more. They brought cows, rams, 7 sheep extra. So what's the connection of Shabbat to the holidays? Holidays are seasonal. They come a few times a year. Shabbat happens every week. They're not really the same. So to understand the connection a little bit, so there's one of these Hasidic rabbis that explains, the first holiday that we have is which one, guys? The ones that 40-year-olds and up get stomach aches. Which holiday? All the old guys like me get stomach aches. What?
Pesach.
Passover, the matzah busts your stomach. When you're young, it's okay. When you get old, you can't digest it. That's why the last day of Passover, you read about the resurrection of the dead. The joke is because if after Pesach you survive, you really believe that God could resurrect the dead after eating so much matzah. How come you're not laughing? I'm just kidding. Am I saying sad stuff? I'm just bothering you. So I think I could become a comedian for 5 minutes. I can't compete with Max Amini, for sure not. What? No, I'm not. But anyways, the jokes that he says, I don't want to say. Some of them are not nice. So at any rate, so let's look at the first holiday that we have, Passover. Really, what did the Jews deserve in order to get out of Egypt? If you look at Kabbalistic books, it says God created 50 levels of impurity. Jews went down to level 49. Why were they rushed out of Egypt overnight? God says, eat your sacrifice of Passover, next morning get out. Come on, let them pack their bags. When you go on a trip, how do you go? You eat a sandwich and go? No, you pack a suitcase. Even if you go away for 7 days, right? You have a whole suitcase, you have to have change of clothes, you take food with you. These poor people for 40 years, they went into the desert. God says, just take matzah out. It's abnormal. I'm not kidding. Why did they have to rush out so much? So Kabbalah explains, because if they would have stayed in Egypt 1 more second extra, they would have fallen into the 50th level. And there's no hope. You can't get out of it. Like, in the language of a Christian language, they would be possessed by the Satan. Whatever language it is. I don't know. That's what would happen. That's why they were rushed out. So if they went to the 49th level of impurity, what merit did they have to get out of Egypt? Actually, this question was asked by Moshe himself. When God tells Moshe, go save the Jews, he says, first of all, who am I to go to Pharaoh? Usually send an important person to impress the king. I can't even talk. Moshe couldn't speak normal. He had a stuttering problem. So if you send a stuttering person, he's not going to impress the king. So I'm not important enough to go. So God tells him, you're not going. I'm with you. And I'm important. That's what God tells him. And then he says, what do the Jews deserve to be saved from Egypt? So God says, you know what they deserve? When they come out of Egypt, they're going to accept the 10 commandments. Now, does that make sense? He says, what kind of merit do they have? He says, in the future, they're going to accept the 10 commandments and the Torah. That's no merit. They don't have it yet. What kind of merit do they have? So Rashi says, from here we learn that even if you have no merit yet, God doesn't look at the impurity that the Jews had at that time. He said, what's going to happen in the future? So God saw the future, right? He's not limited to time. The Jews will accept the Torah. They will come out of the 49 levels of impurity. So that's good enough to redeem them from the evil situation. We have another proof to that. Again, in this week's portion, the Jews had to go destroy Midian. Are you familiar with that story? Okay, when the Jews came right before the Jordan River to go into Israel, so the daughters of Midian went into the Jewish camp, and they did adultery with them. Oh, I guess that'd been a very, seductive girls there. But then they didn't just do adultery. They said, oh, you want to have relations with me? You got to worship my idol too. So the Jews did the 2 serious sins at that time. We lost 24,000 people. So then God tells Moshe, you got to go destroy people of Midian. They made a war, they killed them. But the problem is, Midian wasn't the only nation doing it. Moab did it too. But God doesn't punish Moab. So the question is, why is God picking on Midian, not on the nation of Moab? So Rashi brings a fascinating answer. Because, King David comes from Moab. His great-grandmother was Ruth, that she was a convert of Moab. Okay, so at that time, there was no Ruth yet. Ruth comes like 800 years later, or 700 years later. But if they would have destroyed the entire nation of Moab, there would be no Ruth. There would be no King David. So could you imagine the entire nation gets saved because of one righteous person that comes from it? So that one righteous person redeems the entire nation. That's what we learn from Passover. You're not the victim of the past. God doesn't look at you the way you are now. He looks at the future, and he sees you have such a bright future. So therefore you deserve to live and you will become better in the future. Isn't that what Shabbat is to? The sacrifices of Shabbat. What does Shabbat show, guys? Why do we keep Shabbat? Simple reason, no Kabbalistic reason. Because we believe in creation. God created the world in 6 days, and he didn't create anything new on the 7th day. That's why we keep Shabbat, right? That's what Shabbat shows. It's not a big bang. It's not that the world happened by itself. There was a designer. There is a God that he had a plan. So he created the world in 6 days. The 7th day he rested. I have a question. What motivated God to create the world? There was nothing. There wasn't even that big mass that the scientists said there was a big bang. There was only God. So nobody was there to deserve creation. There was nothing there. And God doesn't get bored, so why did he create the world? When I get bored, I gotta do something to amuse myself. God is not that type. Doesn't need amusements. So why did he create the world? So the Midrash says that God looked into the future and he saw how many righteous people will come, that they will change the world for the better. God saw that. He saw there's going to be a Moses, there's going to be Aaron, he saw there's going to be Martin Luther King. Seriously, good people amongst Jews and non-Jews, doesn't matter. There were many wicked people too, but God saw so many righteous people will come. And that gave him enough pleasure because he looked in the future and he created the world. So even though there was nobody, nothing to deserve creation, but God looked in the future. And he said those individuals or those many people that make the world a better world, they give me a lot of pleasure. For them, I'm going to create the world. So do you see the connection of Passover, the holidays, to Shabbat? Both of them, God shows us, I don't look at your limitations right now. We might be not good, we might not reach our potential. But God doesn't look at it, that He looks at the future. And He says you have redeeming points in the future, therefore you're going to stay alive and you're going to reach there. I'm very, very serious. It's awesome. They always teach us, like, God is this bad thing. He's like, I don't know, the devil, or what's the guy that fire comes out of his mouth? Dragon. Like the God is this big dragon. Is something urgent happening?
No, just for the stuff.
Oh, no problem. Like what? Okay. By the way, this is my son, single and looking. He's more handsome than me. You know why? Because he looks like my wife. Thank God. Doesn't look like me. Good night. I tell everybody, when you guys get married, I hope your kids will have both of your brains and the beauty of the mom. And everybody says amen. Are you okay with that? Of course. That means you're all going to marry wives that are more beautiful than you. I don't think it's Khalid, so don't touch it. Anyway, so see, usually we think that God is this big dragon. He's waiting for you to do a sin, and as soon as you do a sin, boom, lightning will come and it's going to destroy you. No, that's not the God that we believe in. He actually looks at the potential. Even if the guy is not good yet, he looks at the future, and that will redeem us. That's one thing that we know. So therefore, number one, don't give up. If you don't feel that you reached your potential, number one, don't give up. Don't be the victim of the past. You're not the victim of your past. You have a lot of good in you, and you could reach it. You're a good boy, good student, good girl, good student. You'll be a good wife. You're going to be a good husband. You'll be a good parent, good grandparent, hopefully good great-grandparent. You see your great-grandchildren going under the chuppah getting married. Don't say I'm bad, I'm good for nothing because of the past, because you don't get nothing from it. You won't be motivated to be better. Look at the future, and that's fantastic. And then number two, when you look at your friends, you see that other people, also it's such an evil world. It is, but there's a lot of good potentials too. Thank you guys for listening.